We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you if I don't say the words that make...
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the professionals with Stu and Mitch. Good evening, lads.
Evening, Steve.
And we will come to this a little bit later in the programme, but just our respects to Sir Bobby Charlton's family in the northeast and further afield, and of course to those people at Manchester United who've lost a really big name, the biggest legend in football. I think it's safe to say at Manchester United, 86 years of age, passed away. And our thoughts are with Sir Bobby's family. We'll come to that in due course. But let's talk, first of all, Mitch, about Newcastle United 4, Crystal Palace 0. These are the kind of games you've got to win like that when you're trying to chase Champions League for the second season in a row, aren't they?
It's easy to say, though, but it's never easy to do.
Yeah.
And yet yesterday it did look remarkably easy. We took a Palace team who are normally, you think of them as being well organised, well drilled, know their roles. But we, from the get-go, never let them let up, never let them get settled. And then once we got on top, we pressed home the advantage, which again, we're probably guilty of not doing in the past. I think Tom's right when he talks about cruise control. There was certainly at least another gear or two in there if we really needed to. And I think Murphy's performance yesterday was all round probably his best in a black and white shirt for me. He could have had a hat-trick of assists, could have had another goal himself, but he looked fresh, up for it, and his interaction with Trippier on the right-hand side was sensational. And I think that, but you could say that about many of the players. Yesterday, so many of them really were on top form, and that's the only way we can put it. And I think we'll put them away with some style. And you always hope that you're going to do that against a team like Palace, particularly when we're talking qualifying for Champions League. But it's another thing to do it, and I thought we were magnificent, really.
Stu, great performance. Goals aplenty again as well. 4 goals. Spenny predicted 5-0. I laughed at him. I thought 2-0 yesterday would have been, considering we'd had 3-0 draws against them last season. But a 5-0 prediction from Spenny wasn't far off.
Yeah, he was close. I said 5-1 as well, but I couldn't see them getting a 1. And when they had the chance, I thought Pope was alert, considering he had nothing much to do. He made a good save near the end, didn't he? I'm agreeing with what Tom Dixon put on there. I thought Shaw was outstanding. And bear in mind, he's playing on the left side of defence, not the right. It seems to be like that's his natural position. He hasn't skipped a beat. You wouldn't think that he's been put out at any stage. He's comfortable, and I think sometimes his passing's underrated. The way it's obviously something that they work on in training and things like that, the diagonal balls out of defence and things. But again, in agreement with Mitch, I thought Murphy must have had his best game for Newcastle. Not to take any light off him, I think his first goal was rather fortuitous. I would think he was trying to cross it for Wilson, but it went in, and that's all that counts for us. I might be wrong, but that's the way I see it. I thought he was trying to hook the ball over, but the fact that it went in, brilliant. We'll take that look. It's about time we had some. But he's running, his energy, and you can tell that for the 2 weeks that they've been away, the ones that had stayed with this squad had been drilled on what needed to be done. So you had the people like himself and Longstaff and a couple of others that knew exactly what they needed to do. And Everton, Crystal Palace have been very good this season, especially away from home. They'd only had one defeat, and I think that was off Aston Villa, if memory serves me right. And they won at Manchester United. And once we got that first goal, it was just a matter of time. But how many times did we see that last season? We didn't, for all the dominance, we didn't put the game to bed, and then it becomes scrappy. It was, like the Liverpool game, for example, at the start of this season. How much dominance did we have, and we didn't win. And as soon as the second goal went in, and I think their heads just dropped. The third goal was icing on the cake, and then it was half 4 changes all at once, and you could see the 4 that came up were like 4 of the main men. You give them rest. Trippier, Bruno, Wilson, and Gordon. So it's for someone like Gordon as well. He was I wouldn't say vilified, but it was questioned whether he was a good signing at the start. Some of us on here said he would come good, and he has. And now he's one of the first names on the team sheet, isn't he? He's seen as a senior player, and he's got a pivotal role in the team. So all in all, I think after what's been a troubling week off the pitch, they certainly answered it on the pitch. And it was just so comfortable, isn't it? I don't want to sound too blasé because Crystal Palace are a half-decent team, but it really was. It was so comfortable.
Yeah, it certainly was. Lots of comments coming in, and we'll take a few of them now. Craig Lee says, we'll finish second in the Premier League this year. It's a huge statement, Craig. But I would never back against it when people say stuff like that, because the way this team's playing at the moment, we're certainly in the championship race at the moment. You can't deny that. Lots of people talking about man of the match. Dave says, all 11 could have shared man of the match. I felt unfair picking one out. Trippier's different gravy, says Mark. Can I have a minute for Lascelles? The lad has stepped up and never let us down. That shows the type of character he is. And there was somebody else who mentioned something about the players. Man of the match, Murphy. Thought Big Joe had a quiet game, says Mick. It was his first game back. John says, I think Murphy might have been man of the match, but what about the man Shaw? Model of consistency, footballing, quality. And Gary also wants us to give a shout out to Joe Laws, the Benwell bomber, who won his fight at York Hall. I watched it last night. Yeah, he did very well. That was a different Joe Laws to the one I've seen in the past. Maybe there is life in the young dog yet. But yeah, Mitch, from your perspective, man of the match, is the one that you could pick out? Is the one that you thought was outstanding?
Well, like I said earlier, for me, Murphy. But you could make good cases for a number of other players. Shea, Trippier again, and his ability to get forward and cross. Bruno had the freedom of St James's Park yesterday. The Longstaff never stopped working, deserved his goal. Gordon should have had a second. But made sure that the next chance he got, he took it away very, very well. And always looks a danger. Always looks like he's going to harass and hassle the fullback. Wilson worked tirelessly and again deserved his goal just as he was about to be hauled off. So, you can make cases for a lot of players. I think Lascelles has stepped up in a way that shows his character and class. Still remain. His form means we're not rushing bottom back. We're not rushing people back from injury. It makes such a difference. We're turning St James's Park into the fortress we know it can be. Teams will now be looking at fixtures at St James's and thinking, God, we've got to go there. And that's, we know it can be like that, but it hasn't been like that for a long time. And so the players are now giving us as a crowd something to work with, and turn it into this cauldron that opposition teams will be looking at coming into, thinking, yeah, I'm not really fancying that today. I'll be interested to see what kind of attitude Dortmund take in the midweek, seeing what we've got lined up, etc. Because there was more in the tank there quite clearly, and anybody who knows football watching that game will know that we put Palace away reasonably comfortably.
Yeah.
And so, at home, the sky's the limit. I think we genuinely don't have to worry about anybody coming to St James's Park as long as we respect them by delivering the same level of input and effort that we did again yesterday. We've got the class on the pitch now that if we deliver consistent effort and the right mindset, the result should look after itself because there's so much quality there. And that's what's encouraging for me. And I'm also wondering if the form of some players may be changing the mind of the manager and the recruitment team about what our priorities in January may or may not be. But I think we do it the right way. You just look at the fixtures. Who's next? Oh, we've got to prepare for that and not try and get ahead of ourselves. But turning St James's Park into a proper fortress, that's the key to giving a platform that could make Champions League football for a second year running a reality.
Yeah, it's the man of the match scenario. Each game, Stu, is difficult because a lot of these games are team performances, Stu. And, it feels almost unfair to pick somebody out and say that person stood out or that person stood out. There's nothing wrong with it, of course, but, it does feel more difficult, doesn't it?
Well, it's difficult for the right reasons, Steve. Not like under Mr. Bruce when you were hard pushed to find someone that you would give over 6 out of 10. So if you're getting a consistently high performance from just about everyone on the pitch, I thought Bruno was dominant and he had the bit between his teeth, but he was very, very controlled as well because there was a couple of times, one, he got raked down the back of his ankle and I thought he's going to retaliate here, but he's a yellow card away from a suspension. And I think he controlled his temperament very well. But he was bursting forward, he was finding space, he was taking people on, and you could see he was just enjoying it. And I think that was the common theme throughout the team. They just went out and enjoyed themselves. And it looked like it was a relief for them after the intense week that they've probably had, as I said, off the pitch. It was like, go out, lads, go out and enjoy yourself. And they certainly did. So, I mean, you could throw 5 or 6 names in the hat and any one of them would be worthy contenders, whether it was Trippier, Lascelles, Shaw, Bruno, Gordon, and obviously Murphy. I think Murphy will win it with his 2 assists and a goal. And fair play to him. He doesn't look like, I think that was his first start in the Premier League this season as well. So it doesn't look like he's, some people need to edge the way in. He hit the ground running. And it shows, look at the players. I mentioned the ones that have gone off. Look at the players that came on. It shows that our bench is a lot stronger as well. And they really are playing it as a squad game. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's 3 or 4 changes for Dortmund as well. Because irrespective of what Eddie Howe says, I'm sure that would have been in his mind when he was picking his team yesterday. And it would have been, right, you've had that many international minutes. You've had to fly from there. Right, this is the team I want to play for there, but I'll put a team good enough out for this. And I wouldn't be surprised if man the match Murphy was displaced by Miggy to start next week. And I think you'll see Isak starting up front. I think he favours him against the European teams. And it looks like Botman's out, so our boy Lascelles is going to maintain his good form. It's all good, isn't it? It's great. You can't do things. It's fantastic.
I think in the wider picture of football, it's a really interesting point somebody just made about 8 at the start and 11 being English. Crystal Palace are the one where their players are the ones getting picked by Southgate now, whether that's because he's got a long association with that club, lots of contacts there, and sees more of them. He's certainly not picking on form because could you say Guhai's any better than Lascelles?
No.
On yesterday?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
I tell you what, the ragged team. And what you'll find with the first, or what I found for the first 20 minutes, all the player was down the right.
Yes.
And Murphy,
he took their left back apart.
Yeah, and on the other side, you had Joelinton and Gordon in tandem, and they were starved of possession. But that's how dominant they were down the right. And then it switched, and then you got somebody like Gordon, he'll just run all day for you, won't he? And he coming up his own. And again, credit to him, and congratulations on becoming a father for the first time as well. But credit to him when he missed that chance. He actually put the goal was actually a harder chance than the one he missed, but he didn't. His head didn't drop, and that's, I think, comes from the confidence that he's got and the relationship he's now got with the fans as well. You know, it's like, okay, that one's missed next, rather than, oh, I've just missed it. And, you know, it can play on people's minds, and it didn't. It just made him more determined to make sure. And same with Wilson as well. He had a chance or two, but he's a seasoned pro when it comes to scoring. He knows that he's going to get more chances, and he always backs himself, and it's great to see.
Yeah, good game management yesterday. I agree, lads. You know, they targeted that side. I mean, that just shows you that the homework that, you know, that Howe and the boys have done behind the scenes to get that right. He didn't have any help, the kid, either. And Newcastle, you know, utilised, you know, that time and time again. That little Trippier, Longstaff, Murphy combo was very similar to what we saw with Trippier, Bruno, and Almiron in the past. It's something we've done before, but this time with 3 different players. So fantastic to see that as well. A couple of lots of points coming in from lots of people. Thank you for this, Ray. He says his man of the match was Jacob Murphy. And there was another one about yesterday's game. Where was it? John, yeah, he says, so guys, do you think Dortmund will be worried on Wednesday? Like, guys, I thought Murphy was outstanding yesterday. Do you agree? Yeah, we've already said about Murphy. We'll come on to Dortmund in a bit. I do want to talk about the flag in the away end. I mean, again, Palace, you know, I find it a bit strange that Palace seem to be the team that constantly go on about this. I can imagine it being a local rival.
Starts with that chairman, mate.
Yeah, I just find it rather strange that they continue 2 years later. They're still going on. And Mozza wanted to know what our thoughts are about the flag and the away end. So go on, Mitch.
Well, they've also had Middle East investment themselves, so it's rather hypocritical. And let's also not forget they're the only team in the Premier League where we don't actually know who some of their ownership is, because they're owned through a Delaware company where you don't have to declare who you are. That could be a Qatari prince. It could be a Saudi prince. It could be a Kuwaiti royal. Take a pick.
Don't have to be royal, just be wealthy.
Absolutely. And we don't know. And I would presume somebody in Palace knows. And is it a case of their chairman protesting too much? Creating a squirrel for everybody to look at while what's really happening is going on behind the scenes? You don't know. But that's where they get it from. They get it from comments and statements made from the chairman that they've then picked up and run with, because suddenly they see themselves as the moral arbiters of the Premier League for some bizarre reason. You're right. I mean, but they've got a history of odd rivalry. Their rivalry with Brighton, you know, is a made-up rivalry from a FA Cup game in the 70s that they've obviously never been able to let go, probably for lack of a real proper derby in London for them to call their own.
Big Charlton's, isn't it?
Technically, but you know, they seem to be more interested in what Brighton do, and so the fan base of late seems to have been quite odd. I mean, I've seen a couple of things today just while I've been slopping around the house with YouTube on in the background. Some of the Palace channels saying that they were going to come to St James's Park and do, and you know, that Newcastle are beatable and this, that, and the other, and then seeing their reaction videos today is quite amusing. But generally, I think they've got this odd. It's like an itch they can't help but scratch, and it's not like, you know what, if they were. Because they have got a history of being, you know, supported and bought up by that trust, and then, you know, so I get where they come from in terms of the mindset of ownership of clubs. But when they're owned by a Delaware company, and it could be anyone, It could be bloody Pol Pot, for God's sakes. And, you know, what would be the reaction if it was somebody as big a despot as that from somewhere in the world? I'm quite sure it probably isn't. But, you know, it does just seem an odd thing that they've latched onto and they won't let go.
4-1 to Aston Villa. 7 minutes injury time being played at the moment. Big result that for Villa, it really is. West Ham, no mugs, but yeah, 4-1. The flag, Stu, I mean, again, it's a flag, but it is strange. Mitch has covered it all, really. Just you know, your thoughts?
I'm nonplussed by it, Steve. They're irrelevant to us, so maybe they're just trying to gain a bit of notoriety by trying to create a rivalry that's not there. You know, they're just a small club in London. Let them bang on, and they don't make that much noise anyway. Who's bothered what Crystal Palace think? That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would say the same. I mean, it just seems a bit pathetic to me, the fact that anybody would spend any money, time, and effort trying to do that. And as I say, I would expect it maybe if there were a close northeast rival who maybe wanted to hammer a point to him and, you know, create a big fuss about it. But yeah, it's just bizarre. It really is bizarre. But doesn't affect us. We just crack on and continue in the same vein. Top of the program, I did pay respect to this man. Sir Bobby Charlton has passed away, aged 86. Of course, from these parts, from Ashington, and him and his brother Jack went on to win the World Cup in 1966. I mean, you know, I loved it. There's been some great tributes on TV. And you know, it'll go on now for the next few days, and rightly so, and I'm sure his funeral will get a lot of coverage as well. But I thought that the tribute on Match of the Day was wonderful. I heard a few people's comments on there, and one of the comments really struck a chord with me, that, you know, that the Premier League wouldn't be the Premier League if it hadn't been for the forefathers of the game, such as Sir Bobby Mitch. And I think that was a lovely tribute, and rightly so, because I make the point constantly on this program about people going on about Harry Kane beating Alan Shearer's record, and I always tell people, well, actually, Jimmy Greaves holds the record. He's the man who scored the most goals. You know, like there was life before the Premier League, and Bobby Charlton was the life before the Premier League, and he had a hell of a record as well. And you know, I think I admire Bobby Charlton not just because of his football prowess and his skill and the goals he scored and the fact he helped win the World Cup for England, but also the fact he bounced back from probably the worst kind of adversity, which was being on an aeroplane, which, you know, he was on, and he saw, you know, a lot of his good friends and playing colleagues die. And he had to carry the trauma, which essentially, you know, only someone who goes through it could understand. When you're a survivor on a plane crash, or a survivor in an accident, and everybody else dies around you, or lots of people die around you, you're left with that kind of why me kind of trauma. And for Bobby Charlton to get through life as he did, it was clearly always with him. I saw lots of interviews. He was always very, you know, very respectful of it, but always seemed very reflective, always seemed to be very morose, always seemed as if he was elsewhere. I think that's why I admire, you know, Bobby Charlton in a different way to maybe other people. But hell of a name to lose. We've all got to go sometime. He had a hell of an innings, but yeah, you know, he didn't play for us, but what a player.
Yeah, and part of a number of players that in the 60s and 50s we lost to other clubs with decent scouting networks who would pick people up and take them on. Very much a Man United man. And you do have to wonder how much of that entire trauma that he went through, you know, ingrains that bond that he had with the club. World Cup winner, along with his brother, both Northumberland lads, lifting the World Cup, and the last Englishman to lift the World Cup, the only Englishman to lift the World Cup. You know, there's not enough superlatives to make about a player with his kind of record. And you're right, it's worth remembering, because it does feel like these days you have to remind people under certain ages that football didn't start in 1992. That there's a depth of football, that in the history of football, and understanding the history of football is sometimes why you sort of start to get more out of the game. You know, why, for all, there's one part of me looks at their current situation with ownership and has a little bit of schadenfreude out of it. You have to remember the Glazers are making a mess of one of the crown jewels of English football at the end of the day, and you can't say anything else. That's not blowing smoke up Man United's arse. It's just reality. That's the history, you know. And so, and so Bobby Wood Charlton was one of the real, you know, you talk about ambassadors for a club. That's what he was for Man United, worldwide. And they've lost somebody very special, and I think they'll all be hurting. Do I think their owners will appreciate what they've lost? Probably not, because there's not necessarily a price tag associated with it. And that's a shame. But I think anybody who knows football appreciates what they've lost. And did Jack and Bobby make amends? If you see him, there's a speech where Jack presents him with a lifetime award from the BBC Sports, where he says, the best player I've ever seen in my life, me brother. Proper goosebumps moment, that. And so, you know, everybody in football should understand the significance of this loss.
Yeah, they did make up, and it was Sissy who said that she didn't think they would make it at Newcastle, so they should try elsewhere. So it was their mum who didn't allow them to go to Newcastle. Alan Thompson. It was the scouting system wasn't bad in them days, mate. Everybody wanted to play for Newcastle. But yes, Stu, sad moment.
Yeah, the words legend, but definitely in this case, you know, even growing up, you knew that he didn't play for Newcastle, and he was at Manchester United. I was too young to watch him play football, but you know, when you're younger and you go through all the books and everything else, he was the top goal scorer for England. He'd won the European Cup, and you know, these were real players, and they don't play as many internationals as they do now, or get as many easy games. You know, the internationals then were normally a lot harder fixtures. You know, you didn't have your San Marinos of this world getting 7 or 8 put past them every game, you know. So he held that record for a long time, didn't he? So you know what? When I think of someone like Bobby Charlton, and what I think, right? I think he's in a category that there's a very few are in. Like Shankly was in it. There's Jack Charlton, the true gentleman, our very own Sir Bobby Robson. They were respected by all worldwide, not just by the club that they represented. Worldwide, they were respected. They were good about what's all good about football. You know, as I said, true gentlemen, always polite, respectful. They did things the right way. If you look at the old footage, it was always 100% effort, 100% commitment, maximising the best of your ability, and just leading by example. And he was very, very loyal. He's still with Man United right to the end. He's got a stand named after him, you know. So to lose someone like that, I mean, I know it's easy to say, well, I was Scottish, it's not bothered. He's the godfather of British football, just like Jock Steele is, just like Bill Shankly is. And I know he wasn't a manager, but he's up there with the names that will come rolling off the tongue, like the Stanley Matthews and things like that. He is steeped in what the football's about. You know, for the last century, he's a true icon, and 86 years old, fair play to him, may rest in peace. And I don't think we should say much more about that. It's a sad thing, but as you said at the start, Steve, we will have to go sometime. But because of what happened with him at the Munich air disaster, it seemed like he lived every day, not asking why me or why not me, just living every day to prove that he was lucky enough to survive and do something positive with his life. And I don't think many more could have achieved what he's done in his lifetime.
Okay.
You're right, Stu, about that, about being in a category where they transcend the club football and they mean something to everybody. and everybody can respect what they did and enjoy
Cluffy.
what they did. Yeah, absolutely. And that is a really special group of people.
Yeah, lads. Yeah. Good tribute. Our thoughts go to the Charlton family. We will hit the ads back after this.
A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find out more about them from their website mrvickies.co.uk or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to United Group Travel, UK coach holiday firm based in Morpeth. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. They're now taking bookings for 2024. You can call 01670 632 460, 0791 666 4174 or 07957 141 654 or go to the website unitedgrouptravel.com. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button underneath the video today. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video to like it. It does us a big favour. Click share to share to your other social media and let people know about NUFC matters. We're also a podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify and other podcast providers. If you want to help the show financially, you can take out a £25 one-off membership. You get a scarf, a pen, a cup and a membership card. How do you get it? Go to nufcmatters.com, look for membership. If you've got a smartphone, then put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight to that section on the website. We also support the food bank on this channel. You can donate to the food bank today by going to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. We do support events on this channel as well. If you've got an event, please send it in and we'll promote it. The Tyne Theatre and Opera House are doing a Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle event, the Class of 84, 25th of January 2024. Book now by calling 0844 249 1000. And the Tyneside Irish Centre, they're doing an event with Frank Clark and John Gibson on Thursday, December the 7th. You can get tickets from nufcmatters.com and they are priced at £15. There's also some tickets available on Groupon. Don't forget, you can catch me 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, with Rye, Dave and Daz on the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show, 7 till 9. And you can catch us on the Red, the Toon and the Cat and on Toon Radio's website. WhatsApp us on the day 0330 043 2002, the perfect way to start your day.
Okay, half an hour to go on the show. Barry says another 1966 hero passed away, suffering from dementia. Bless him and his family. An amazing football ambassador. Remember Bobby talking about the Toon on an episode of Jossie's Giants? I think I stuck that on our backup channel on YouTube. If you want to go and watch that, mate, it is still on there. Let's get back to football though, and John Askew says, I think there was St. James, that was a first at St. James's Park yesterday. 4 subs at the same time, and more significantly, the ones who came on were pretty much as good as the ones who came off. It is good having strength in depth. And Michael said, good evening, everyone. Great support yesterday from Sandro, from everyone. Yeah, very much so, very much so. And announcement came up on NUFC.com, not on the official site, but on Biffa's site, to say that the reports in Italy state that the federal prosecutor Giuseppe Sheen will meet with lawyers acting for Sandro Tonali on Monday for what amounts to plea bargaining. An announcement confirming the player's punishment for involvement in illegal sports betting will then follow, with the expectation that it will come before Newcastle's Champions League game on Wednesday. A blanket ban on him playing football for at least the remainder of the current season appears inevitable amid fears that a lengthier sanction should follow. So we are going to be doing Geordie's here, Geordie's there on Tuesday. So we will probably find out, I would imagine, maybe for that show. So we will cover that later in the week. We've done enough on Tonali. I don't want to go back down that particular wormhole at the moment. Here's a good one, though, from Stephen Anderson. Does Botman walk straight back in, lads? Mitch?
Well, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to, and that's the beauty of Lascelles' form. Is we're under no pressure to put him straight back in. I think, however, if he's fully fit and ready to go, the partnership between him and Shea is phenomenal. But it would, in some ways, be very harsh on Lascelles to just drop him, because he's not put a foot wrong at all. And I think that's the beauty of having somebody coming in like Lascelles, who is up his game, looks fitter, looks a better player all round, looks more comfortable with the ball at his feet. It's not so much like a hot potato. So we're under no pressure to rush Botman back. And it might be a case we can give him a couple of games off the bench to make sure the fitness is there, and then make a decision from there.
Okay. Would Botman come in at the expense of Lascelles, Stu? You're on mute, mate. I don't know why.
Because the adverts I put myself on. It doesn't necessarily have to be for Lascelles, but Botman, I said yes straight away, because I think, for me, I think only Jonathan Woodgate's in the equation of the best centre-half I've seen play for Newcastle with Botman. So it would be silly not to play your best players. But the way that Lascelles has come in, and I don't think anyone's been a bigger advocate of Jamal Lascelles over the last 12 to 18 months than myself and Mitch have been. So this isn't a slight on him. But the fact that Shaw's been outstanding playing on the left side, now there's three of them there, and you can mix and match them. You know, both Shaw and Botman can play on the left. Both Shaw and Lascelles can play on the right. So it could be, because there's a flurry of games, isn't it? It's twice a week up until the next international break. So it could be just now rotate them to that, I think. But once they settle down and everyone's fully fit, as exceptional as Shaw has been, I think Botman as Lascelles has been, Botman and Shaw is the first choice. So I would imagine once things are settled down, then it'll go back to that. But what it does give us is not so much concern if one of them get injured, if one of the two parents get injured, because Lascelles has proved to be more than an able deputy, and he'll get plenty more games this season. There's too many games for him not to play more. And I think if someone had offered him 20 plus games at the start of the season, he would have been delighted with that. And now he's got the backing of every fan. I don't think is a Newcastle United fan who watches the games can say that Lascelles hasn't been anything but outstanding since he's come back into the team. So, but the original question, does Botman come straight back to the team? As Mitch said, if he's fully fit, he has to be in the team.
Yeah. More needs to be said about Wilson's goal, thrown out by Pope, one touch pass from Trippier, Murphy already on his bike without looking, one touch cross on the plate for Wilson, and one touch and finish. Yeah, I mean, it's been given some great goal. If that had been a
16 seconds, isn't it? Back to front.
Had that goal been scored by Brazil, it'd be getting played time and time again. That's how good it was. Unfortunately, Newcastle are doing this so many times now. There's so many great goals that Newcastle are scoring that it's becoming the norm. It's becoming acceptable, and gradually, I think Newcastle fans are starting to understand what it's like being a big team. Again, because that's exactly what we are. I think. You listen to Liverpool going on unbeaten runs at home, and haven't been beaten for exit. Newcastle want to do the same. It's progress. Yeah,
I tell you what's reflective. Something it might sound late now, but I think it's genuinely reflective of the subtle change in mindset as a fan base that we're undergoing.
Yes,
about learning to become a real big club, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and with my good mate Johnny Melrose this morning, I had a WhatsApp chat with him, and he mentioned how he doesn't feel the same way about we're playing in white socks or white shorts now. Whereas at one time, if we had white socks on, he would be bothered by it. His mindset would be, well, we're going to lose. I don't like we're playing in that. And now he says, I've not even noticed what colour shorts and socks we're playing in. I'm just enjoying the game. I'm just enjoying knowing what we can do. And I genuinely think that reflects a subtle change in mindset within the fan base, because it's not that long ago that there had been all sorts of chatter on social media about white socks and white shorts, and I just don't see any of it anymore. and I think that's us learning to. It's not the combination of shirts and socks that brings the look. We make our own. It's the players in the shirts and the socks, and we've got the players who are given 100% for a manager who's getting the very best out of them. And I think that for me is, fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. Go on, Stu.
I said I quite like the white shorts and socks, but rather than hark back on, if you remember the show we did after Brighton, and everyone was down rightly so because it was such a lackluster performance, and often it gets levelled as that I'm over positive rather than just being positive. But I said we've got players in that squad that are more than capable of going on a long unbeaten run, and I think that's 8 games since then. Haven't looked like losing, and long way to continue. And it's all about belief in your own ability, belief in your colleagues, workmates, and you can see that the confidence is there, and they don't look flustered. They go on the pitch expecting to win, but knowing what they need to do to get the win. It's not arrogance; it's belief. And then if you add on the no relation, Dr. Ian Mitchell has been brought in, the sports psychologist, then he's going to eke that extra percentage out of them. They're going to be even better, aren't they? So, and I wanted to mention what we touched on it last week on the Amigos, but I wasn't on for that long. It was regarding the sports psychologist. If you remember, and I will say it to defend me mate JC, when he said he was the best coach in the land, and he was proper vilified for that. That came from where the club actually, under Mike Ashley, brought in a sports psychologist to speak with him. And at the time, he was the highest qualified coach in UEFA badge-wise in England. And so what he was meant to say is, I know I'm the best qualified coach and I'm great at my job, and it came out all wrong and it got blown up. If you go back to the original interview, he says, no, I am the best coach in that. You can imagine that in a session with a sports psychologist. You are the best. You've proven it. Go out and believe it, And you probably shouldn't have said it in an interview, to be fair to him, but he did. But the psychology side of it is massive, and it's a bit where this is, again, not wanting to give credit to someone that we really don't like to give credit to, but it's deserved. Sam Allardyce was doing this at Bolton, and he managed to get so much extra out of them by using the psychologists and the sports scientists and things like that. So it's definitely there. It's there to be used, and the fact that we went out and got someone whose reputation is first class. I think it's just another very astute backroom signing.
Alan is in the chat. Alan Thompson. He says Mitch Lascelles is not Franz Beckenbauer. He's the guy who got us relegated in the past, man.
No,
yes, he's not playing well, but he dropped the clanger against West Ham.
But the point I'm making, I totally agree our best centre-back pairing is Botman and Shea. But having somebody able to mix in with that means we don't have to bring Botman back and rush him in. If he's got any doubt, you don't have to take the chance. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I've got no doubt that the first choice centre-back pairings is Shea and Botman. And I've also still of the opinion, looking ahead, we need a younger right-sided centre-back option, thinking going forward, who might partner Botman for the next 5 years. So I think that's what that's the point I'm trying to make, not necessarily should he come straight back in or not. He just doesn't have to. That's all. It's all about opinions. We're actually of the same opinion that the best centre-back we've got at the club's Botman. There's no doubt about that. But it's a real luxury to not have to rush a star player back. You bring him back when he's ready. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, we're not going to look ahead to Dortmund tonight because, as I say, Geordie's there is going to be on Tuesday night because the game is on Wednesday. So it gives us an opportunity to have a proper chat about that. I am going to go for this question, though, from John. He says, is this the best of times in the club's history for Magpie fans? I put a tweet out the other day about Eddie Howe, and I said that if he wins a trophy, I think, you know, he's going to be potentially up there with Joe Harvey, because he's created something special. And if he can find the consistency in the Premier League and get Newcastle into successive Champions League campaigns, which is what Kevin Keegan did, you know, I genuinely think that, you know, he's going to be held in, you know, probably greater esteem than some big names. He could be greater than Keegan. He could be greater than Sir Bobby Robson. He has to win that trophy. But I think he will. I think it'll be when he wins the trophy, and I think he will get us back into the Champions League next season. And I think he's potentially, in the words that Shankly used back in the 70s, he's going to create a bastion of invincibility at Newcastle. I think he's got all the minerals, he's got all the materials, he's got the nous, the know-how, but he's got the backing of that dressing room as well, and you know, he's got money as well behind him, which he hasn't had to use as yet. But, you know, imagine Eddie Howe getting the opportunity to spend a bit more money as time goes on. I think this club's in a hell of a place. I think the fans are starting to realise this. Is it the best of times in the club's history? I can only speak as I found, living through the 80s, the 90s and the 90s. It's coming very close to eclipsing the Entertainers for me. I wouldn't say it has just yet, but it's coming close to it. So I wouldn't say it's the best time, but it's got the potential to be the very best. And that's something I never thought I would be saying, you know, before this takeover. So I don't think it is yet, Alan. John, sorry, that is my answer. What's your views, Mitch?
Hard to disagree with you, Steve. If you add silverware to what we're doing at the minute, then you're close to saying it is one of the best of times. If we were to do something daft like we did in the 50s, where you get 3 FA Cups in 5 years, then you say it certainly is. I think that's the bottom line on it. As I think you just need to add the silverware to make it complete. Entertainers was fantastic, but it still feels like unfinished business in some respects. And of course, that's sitting here saying it with hindsight. At the time, it felt bloody fantastic. But there's something that stands out from that, which just couldn't add the trophy cabinet. If Howe is able to do that for us, then yes, I think of course it is.
What's your view, Stu? Are you the same as me and Mitch?
Yeah, three yeses. I was going to try and do a Simon Cowell accent. I don't think I've got the tones to do it. No, but to me, it's not surpassing the Entertainers. I think we've discussed this many a time through different questions, because that was like a fairy tale ride. But what we're on now, it has more substance to it, and you can see it's going to have longevity, and there's no doubt it will surpass the Entertainers. And I have to agree with both of you. It's once the silverware starts flowing, that's when you have to. I think the debate gets taken away, doesn't it? You know, you've got the consistent finish, and the fact that everyone says that when it was hard for what Keegan's team did to break into the top, but then they said it was easier in the 70s to do it. We're saying it was easier then to do it now, and I'm sure in 10 or 20 years' time it was harder. But if you look at the established so-called Big Six, the financial fair play restrictions, how he's achieved it, it's not swashbuckling football, gung-ho, what Keegan did, you're better than them, just go out and play. This is done through a lot of hard work, and everything that they get, they'll deserve. And I'm just envious but proud of the younger generation who've got all this to come. And, you know, in 20, 30 years' time, they may be doing podcasts or whatever the equivalent is at that stage, and saying how wonderful it was to the Eddie Howe era, how they end up winning 1 trophy one season, then it become 2, then 4, then 7. And they were there at the start of it, you know, and we could have actually an absolute dynasty by then, because our owners are not for stopping. And that's the good thing. But I want to say something negative, and it's just something I thought about today. Work was, and I'll probably say before the press, it's an exclusive, because we've had quite the last few weeks, haven't we, where other people have been saying these exclusives. This is just a thought. And it's a case of if or when St. James's Park gets expanded, there will be more seat shuffling. It'll have to happen because correct us if I'm wrong, Mitch, but I think we've got special dispensation to have the away fans where they are because of the way the ground's set up. So if we go from 52 to say 60, 65,000, we've got no excuse to keep the away fans up in the gods. And then, I can't believe that we've got a bigger ground. But, the ones who didn't want to move from St. James Park, they'll get what they want. They get a bigger stadium. I can't believe I've got to move seats so it'll create something else. But that's the part of success, isn't it? The fact is that we're winning, otherwise they wouldn't be getting a bigger ground. And what made us think of that was that quiz that we did when the question was Wimbledon, and I got it wrong. I said Sheffield Wednesday. Who was the first row? I was actually sitting at Wimbledon with a friend of mine in Heats called Tony Dissy to Wimbledon, and it was very sparse, but the Leazers wasn't fully built then, and they had probably where the players' wives and that go now in the corner part of where the Melbourne meets the Leazers. It was just round past there, and it wasn't fully built. But even then, people said, I don't want to move from here. I quite like this. The away fans were loving that seat, knowing that they were having to move. But you've all done it. We've all done it. You've had your seats. You were in the Gallagher, Steve. You went in the Melbourne. Mitch, you got moved or you chose to move. But the main thing is, if you're lucky enough to get a ticket and you're sitting watching this team, then you're blessed. And you should just enjoy every vantage point that you can get with it. So that was I just thought I'd throw that in because it's all been positive that with the ground will go bigger, but the away fans will have to come closer to the pitch like they do in just about every other ground. That's the league rules, but we've always had dispensation under policing rules.
Yeah, it's one thing I never thought of, but it's another curveball that's coming flying towards supporters. I think you're right. Spot on, Stu. In 30 years' time, will there be a statue for Botman and Lascelles? I envy the younger generation. I think there'll be a big Lascelles statue, Alan. Yes, right next to your seat. Yes, Tom, the Dortmund fans have got the big market again for Wednesday night, and it was Stuart Pearce, Bill, who predicted Newcastle would win the Premier League this season. Mick Mullane says there are no bad seats, just some are better than others. And I did like this from George Bainbridge. He says Lascelles is better than Beckenbauer. Franz is 78 years old.
That's a Google search if ever I've seen one.
It was a logical one, though. It was a logical one. I loved Mark's tweet in as well. He says, next 5 home games, Dortmund, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, AC Milan. 5 wins from 5, lads. Why not? Why not? And Neil says, just for the naysayers who say Tonali doesn't care about the club and didn't want to come in the first place. Yeah, look, it's been a big week for Tonali. And as I said, we will cover that more probably on Tuesday on Geordie's here. Geordie's there. It's a big week for him. Let's hope it's not too severe, the punishment. Statue of Lascelles holding the Champions League trophy next to Alan's seat. Yeah, definitely, it would be great. Yeah, well, look, we've got that coming up, haven't we, lads? We will look ahead to it more on Tuesday night, but we'll finish off just talking about it. Lots of people seem to want to hear the professionals. Some people might not watch Tuesday night. It's a huge game again, isn't it, Mitch? I mean, Dortmund winning 1-0, Newcastle winning 4-0, Dortmund going top of the Bundesliga. Obviously, the teams behind them have got a game in hand. Newcastle low, finding themselves, in and around the runners and riders for the Premier League. It's a big game. It's another exciting game at St James's Park. This.
It is, but the frame of reference has to be the PSG home game, and look at how we responded there. I managed to catch yesterday morning some highlights of the Dortmund game, and they really didn't look great to me from what I saw of it. There's certainly nothing in that team that we should fear. They're one of the few teams that knows what it's like to create a cauldron of their own with the yellow wall in their home ground, and so maybe they'll be more accustomed to that kind of atmosphere that we can create at St James's Park. But as I said before, we're turning it slowly into a fortress again, a place where we're delighted to step out on the pitch into. We feel supported, we feel that there's an intensity within the ground, that the players like to feel. I noticed yesterday from the off, Murphy and Gordon revving the crowd up and getting everybody up for it yet again. So there's nothing to fear there. And from what I saw of them, they were a little bit streaky in their win at the weekend. And let's remember, yes, they're great teams and they're teams with European experience. But like with PSG, Liga 1 and the Bundesliga is not the same level that we're playing at every week in the Premier League in terms of depth. You know, it's not quite a farmers' league, but there are teams in there that are very poor. And so when you look at them having not such a great game, I think it was against Freiburg, then, you know, there's nothing that we're going to look at and say, oh, well, we could be at risk there. Certainly not looking at the team that PSG put out and you're thinking, well, there's Mbappe is there and they might be able to carve a open here or there. I look at Dortmund, just don't think any of that. And I think, again, if we bring the intensity, bring the level of respect to the opposition, and do what we're good at doing, that there's nothing there to fear.
Same for you, really, Stu. It's something to look forward to, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to believe, but if Newcastle can win on Wednesday night, we've got 1 foot in the last stages.
I think they will win, and yeah, you can use parallels that they're used to playing with big crowds, but so Man United, and they're not doing well this season. You know, so it's how you work the crowd, and what's the phrase that they have in the training ground? Intensity is our identity. And as Mitch just quite rightly said there, you can see that the way they get an early challenge and get the crowd on the side. And they've got an 81,000 stadium that looks very impressive with the yellow and black and everything else. But they haven't played at St James's Park. And these are the games that we've been wanting. These are the games that we'll probably have to get used to. Isn't that great? We're going to have to get used to these. And I honestly think we can blow them out of the water. And I said at the start, a team that finishes first in England is better than a team that finishes first in Germany and second, third, fourth, etc., etc. And I know they just lost the league on the last kick of the game last season, but also lost the best player to Real Madrid. And I watched them play against Paris Saint-Germain the game after we played Milan away. And I thought they were lucky to get 0. They got beat 2-0, and I thought they were lucky to get 0. And then they didn't score again at home to AC Milan. So maybe I'm doing them a disservice, or maybe I'm just being extremely positive. But I think they'll be fearing us more than we should fear them. We go out and do our jobs, keep our heads and don't get too excited, and do a professional job like they did on Saturday. And I think Mitch used the phrase with tongue in cheek, they had plenty in the tank when they finished. You know, nobody, when they play these games, they go out and you've heard it a lot, they've left everything on the pitch. You couldn't say that on yesterday's game. You know, they did more than enough to win it, and it was comfortable, it was controlled, and the star players got rest. Some people who needed some minutes inside them got on the pitch, and whatever team we put out on Wednesday, I think there'll be more than enough to beat Borussia Dortmund.
I get your point about German teams being fit, Alan, but I'd beg to differ on them being fitter than Eddie Howe's team, mate. I really would. Newcastle United's got more than a plan A now. They've got a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And I think Eddie Howe will have done his homework. And I think you'll be surprised. I was surprised against PSG. This is a different game, a different team, but he looks at them game by game, and it's going to be interesting. Tomorrow night's fans forum is a pre-record. I've just done it today, so that will be on at 6 o'clock. And Geordie's here. Geordie's there is on Tuesday night. That will be live at 6 o'clock. And I do want to dedicate this particular show to my mate Dave, who sadly lost his life in the early hours of this morning. I've known Dave for 32 years, been a good friend to me, a good confidant, somebody who's always been on the end of the phone. We've had some good nights out in Newcastle as well back in the day. That was in Legends. But yeah, Dave, don't know what was going through your mind, mate, but I hope you're in a better place and I hope you found peace. God bless you, mate. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks to Stu. Thanks to Mitch. And thanks to everybody in the chat. Take care. Night, lads.
Cheers, everyone.